Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. I'm releasing this update video in order to clarify some information and to apologize to my viewers directly. I related some information that allowed my own biases and perceptions to color my statements, and in the doing so, I related inaccurate information to my viewers. Now, as you should be aware, I am not an attorney, nor am I an attorney that specializes in copyright law. Yet, I came at Sean Vaineman and Campo Santos secure in my belief that they were in the wrong legally, ethically, and morally. However, my lack of expertise with the law means that, in spite of how much I would wish to think otherwise, I do not know everything. I am not without flaws or faults, and occasionally I am capable of making mistakes. It is a case of knowing what you know and not assuming the rest. And while I do have far more knowledge than your average layman when it comes to copyright law and specifically fair use in the DMCA, I most certainly am not an authority on the topic. I allowed my own surety and ego to color my judgment when I should have stuck to the facts. But that also begs the question, what are the facts? Well, as much as we would all want to believe it to be otherwise, Let's Plays are not considered to be automatically fair use. They do not offer critique in any real meaningful way, nor are they news pieces or educational in nature. The only real leg that Let's Players have to stand on when it comes to fair use is the idea of general commentary that could be made an allowance for a transformative work. That would depend on percentages, and ultimately each case under that aspect would have to be taken on a purely case-by-case basis, and means there's no legal precedent set in this regard. Both development companies and content creators have tended to err on the side of caution. This has led to clashes in the past, but there hasn't been any legal precedent set that falls outside of the realm of news and critical commentary or critique. The rules surrounding the transformative nature of a work within the law is nebulously defined by design, and unfortunately, it's likely to remain that way for the foreseeable future. Now, a lot of people, including myself, have brought up the Firewatch website providing blanket permission in regards to streams and Let's Plays. And this brings up the idea behind what is known as express or implied license, or more specifically in this case, this blanket permission is what is known as an implied license, and bitlaw.com defines an implied license quite nicely for us as the following. An implied copyright license is a license created by law in the absence of an actual agreement between the parties. Implied licenses arise when the conduct of the parties indicates that some license is to be extended between the copyright owner and the licensee, but the parties themselves did not bother to create a license. This differs from an express license in that the parties never actually agree on the specific terms of the license. The purpose of an implied license is to allow the licensee, the party who licenses the work from the copyright owner, some right to use the copyrighted work, but only to the extent that the copyright owner would have allowed had the parties negotiated an agreement. Generally, the custom and practice of the community are used to determine the scope of the implied license. And that would mean that the blanket permissions granted by Campo Santos would mean that PewDiePie's and anyone else's Let's Plays or streams of Firewatch would, by definition of that implied license, not be a copyright violation. That said, it's again not that simple. And this was where my knowledge of fair use stopped, but some attorneys would argue that there's more to it than that. Orion Morrison, founding partner at the law firm Morrison & Lee LLP, has stated the following: if a license doesn't say non-revocable, you can revoke it anytime you want. Now, this means that Campo Santos can decide, at their sole discretion, that they can terminate that blanket permission at any time of their choosing. But again, that's not quite that simple either, because as we know from the DMCA copyright lawsuit that Heel and Ethan of H383 Productions won against Matt Haas, having knowledge of the existing copyright infringement for an appreciable length of time without taking action can very possibly count against Campo Santos in that regard. That complicity towards the video's existence for such a long period of time could be taken as an acknowledgement or an acceptance that this was not an infringement of their copyright. It's not enough to hold up on its own and would be by no means enough to base a case off of, but it would certainly help. It is that argument of complicity that is one of the many reasons we see so many game publishers defend their intellectual property so vociferously. So, as I said, it's extremely complicated, with even specialists in the field of copyright law being unable to agree on whether this DMCA takedown would be legal or not. Regardless, what Sean Vaineman did by even threatening this DMCA strike was to destroy the trust of any Twitch streamer or YouTuber when it comes to their games, either current or in the future. It is because of this legal ambiguity when it comes to fair use that means that Let's Players operate right on that fuzzy line of legality when it comes to copyright, and their mere existence is at the sufferance of the game's developers and publishers. Up until now, with the exception of Nintendo, Atlas Games, and some others, developers and publishers have understood the vast benefits when it comes to Let's Players and streamers providing them with what equates to free advertisement to their products, and this has allowed for a vast amount of mutual benefit and profit to be generated for all parties involved. But Sean Vaineman even stated that the DMCA strike against PewDiePie was not out of any legitimate concern in regards to their copyright being violated, it was out of spite. It was because of something he said that Vaineman didn't like, while not in any way remotely involving Firewatch or Campo Santo's games, even to the point of stating on his Twitter feed that allowing their game to exist on his channel equals an endorsement. Now, by that method of logic, Digital Homicide heavily endorses both Jim Sterling's channel and my own. By that way of thinking, Berdiev of BC Interactive fully supports my coverage of his asset flip games and despicable behavior, or that any and all games covered on my channel fully endorse and support my actions. That is what that way of thinking means, and it is beyond ridiculous, just as it is complete lunacy. But make no mistake, Vaineman isn't doing this to protect his copyright. He's doing it specifically to spite and hurt another person, and in the doing so, he has shown his regard towards streamers and Let's Players in general. He has shown that as soon as you say or do something he might possibly find objectionable, no matter how much time has passed since you covered his game, or how much money he has earned off of the back of your coverage, he will throw you under the bus and threaten to destroy your livelihood. And it doesn't even matter if it had nothing to do with his game or not, nor whether a day, a week, or even a year has elapsed since you covered his product. Step out of line and be punished, because you don't have a right to the videos you created that has generated mutual profit and exposure. Not in his mind, and quite possibly not in the eyes of the law. So while it may be true that the threatened DMCA might be illegal, and it is very likely that it is, it doesn't change the fact that it is both ethically and morally reprehensible. It shows that Sean Vaineman cannot be trusted by content creators. It shows that Campo Santos cannot be trusted in this regard either. As a result of this action, I will no longer cover Campo Santos games on my channel, and my review of Firewatch has already been removed from public viewing. As a content creator myself, I refuse to support Sean Vaineman, Campo Santos games, or any of their endeavors, past, present, or future. Now please, feel free to let me know what you think down in the comments below. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I'll see you next time.